This moment right here is probably the happiest I've been in a hell of a long time. And my girlfriend's in the room next door, so nobody tell her, please. But this was such a good moment. I have not felt something like this in a hell of a long time. Somehow, Chelsea 4, Man United 3, despite being 3-2 down in the 109th minute. How is that even possible? How is that even possible? I mean, there was a complete lack of tactics in this game. No midfield anywhere to be seen for either team. And I think there was about 47 shots altogether. Something ridiculous like that. And I think 28 of them were for Chelsea. Quite simply ridiculous numbers. And I think Casemiro had a really poor game today as well. But I'm going to get into him a bit later and why he was really poor in the first 20 minutes that helped Chelsea gain that 2-0 advantage to start with. But I'm going to start off with this. This is the first part of the game. So this is when Chelsea were on top. I don't think Man United played badly for the first half an hour, to be fair to them. I think just Chelsea took their chances. And both teams set up like this in their 4-2-3-1. But in possession, Chelsea stayed in that formation. In defence, Man United actually played a bit more of a 4. It wasn't like that. It was more like that. A 4-1-4-1 with Casemiro as the single pivot. And Gallagher would peel off a little bit more in a left mid position, Jackson over there. And this allowed Man United to go man-to-man for Chelsea's midfield and get control of the middle of the pitch while in defence. But that lasted a total of about 3 minutes. 3 minutes, that's all. What we saw Chelsea do, and we've seen them do it before, is how they utilise Palmer. Palmer, who starts at the right wing, actually drifts into this position here. And if you've watched my videos before, you probably know what I'm about to say, because it is my favourite thing ever. I love it. I love it. Guess what it is. Any guesses? Well, if you said a box midfield, you'd be correct. This box right here for Chelsea, it meant that they had the extra man. Dalot at times would come inside, or Garnacho would have to come inside, and sometimes even Varane would jump. But, I've lost Varane now. There he is. If Dalot went inside, this meant that Gusto had free reign on the right-hand side to overlap. But also, if he didn't, Chelsea had more numbers in the middle of the pitch. Casemiro is outnumbered. He's not exactly mobile. Very much not mobile. And he can't cover Gallagher and Palmer at the same time. And I think his initial tactics were to cover Gallagher. And out of everyone in that Chelsea team, Palmer is the last person that you let have the ball. And yet Man United did it. And now I'm not complaining. But we saw the first goal come because Palmer had dropped into this role and it created an overload in the midfield. And then Gusto got a free run on the right-hand side and Palmer came out of the midfield. And it just meant that they could overload the right-hand side. And the ball came in. It was a bit scrappy, but then obviously Gallagher had attacked it and 1-0. 5 minutes in and I'm elated. 1-0 up already. Not something I see Chelsea do very often. And then we went 2-0 up. Granted, it was a soft penalty. You know Cole Palmer's not missing it because it's Cole Palmer. He doesn't miss. Cold Palmer for a reason. But then things got a bit of a problem for Chelsea. So despite being 2-0 up, typical Chelsea, we throw it all away. And Man United started taking their chances that they were getting. And they attacked in a pretty weird way. They attacked in a 2-3-4-1. So what we would see is, we're going to go at the moment with Onana being the third centre-back. Mainu pushing forward. And Dalot and Wan-Bissaka pushed into the midfield. Something a bit like this. And it just meant that whilst it was set up a bit more like that, in obviously higher up the pitch, Man United had, I don't want to say an overload in midfield, but they were able to get past Chelsea's press quite easily, or what you can call Chelsea's press, not that they did really press, but what I really liked is how they used the fullbacks. But I think there were some problems with it as well, and we'll get into that. So we'd see Wan-Bissaka and Dalot both making runs in behind into the half spaces, and it led to their second goal. I'll put the screenshot on at the moment. We see Dalot picks up this half space on the left-hand side and puts the cross in, which then results in Bruno Fernandes' header. What I didn't like, though, and I think this is why when we look at the second half, why it was so end-to-end. Because when Man United attacked, they committed both their fullbacks into the half spaces in the attacking line. Now, normally, if one of them is going to go, that's fine. Say Wan-Bissaka pushes forward, you'd expect someone like Dalot to then sit back, or at least if he is going to push forward, Mainu to be a bit deeper to provide that defensive cover in case there's a turnover. But they didn't. They stayed in this kind of formation. And I don't quite know why they didn't think that would lead them to be vulnerable in defensive transition. But they went with it, and to be fair to them, it became 2-2. And Chelsea were collapsing again. One thing I would like to highlight with them doing this, though, is it created overloads here and here. Cucurella and Gusto were both 2 versus 1, and it meant Garnacho and Antony had free reign to either take on the defender, or there was always that spare man to then, if they played the ball, for example, say Antony's got the ball and he plays it to Wan-Bissaka, he's then got this free run in behind effectively, and they utilise that very well. I think Man United really used their wide players brilliantly. I thought Garnacho and Antony were brilliant. By far the best game I've ever seen Antony play in a Man United shirt. But I thought that was quite clever. And Cucurella wasn't exactly... I thought he started all right, but he wasn't exactly brilliant in defending them situations. And Gusto wasn't the best either. And then going into the second half, it was really interesting to see how open the game was. There was turnovers constantly. It was pretty much 2 counter-attacking teams going at each other, yet neither team can defend. It was really quite something that... it didn't make sense. It just didn't make sense. And obviously we did see that goal eventually come. Brilliant assist from Antony, that outside of the football. I mean, credit to Antony, brilliant assist. And Garnacho put it away, and they go 3-2 up. And I was scared. I was asked people that I was with at the time. I was not a happy person at that time. I really thought we'd thrown it away at that point. But I still think Casemiro was really poor. And the reason I say this is he's not exactly mobile. And at times, when Casemiro went to press Gallagher in this left side of the pitch, or in Man United's right side, it meant Casemiro's pushed out to the left-hand side, and it left especially when he was the single pivot, it left such a gap in the midfield for the likes of Jackson to drop to create that box, or for Palmer to move centrally and create that box. Now, if we have a look at Palmer's heat map, you can see that whilst he did stay wide a fair bit at the time, he drifted into that half space a lot as well, and that was partly because he was creating this box in the midfield around Casemiro. And Casemiro also, as I said, it was a counter-attacking game. He's meant to just sit there and defend. There's this one moment that I'll put on screen at the moment. You can see this is him here. This is Casemiro here. And as we go through these screenshots, Chelsea are attacking. Casemiro is just jogging back. I mean, this was a £70 million midfielder that won multiple Champions Leagues with Real Madrid, and he's just jogging back. I mean, I thought it was really poor from him. And if we look at the stats for this game as well, he won 1 out of 5 ground duels. That's really bad. For someone that's meant to be the defensive midfielder, that's really bad. And he was dribbled past twice, which is joint second most in the game, other than Cucurella, who I do think struggled against Antony. But Casemiro was poor, and that's why I think he got taken off after half an hour. It just wasn't, after 60 minutes, it just wasn't working. So after the substitutions, Chelsea then looked something a bit like this. I'm pretty sure it was a 3 at the back. If it wasn't, then it was a very tilted kind of 4-4-2. But I'm pretty sure it was more of like I'm going to call it a 3-2, a 3-4-3 maybe. I don't really know. It was pretty much get on all the attackers that you can. I think Madueke was meant to be a right wing back, but we were obviously chasing the game, so he wasn't. He was more of a right winger. And I thought Sterling, when he came on, was quite poor. He had 22 touches, I believe, since coming on, which was the most out of all the substitutes, but he didn't really do anything. But I do think against a young Cambuala, he did kind of he made the right runs to drag players, to drag the Man United defence where he wanted to drag them to. And I thought Chukwuemeka did quite a good role at occupying the half spaces when he did get into them. Obviously, we saw him have that shot towards the end when it's 3-3, which nearly deflected in, which then led to the corner, to be fair. But I thought Madueke was brilliant when he came on. We know he's really good at just running at players, and sometimes he's a bit careless with the ball when he dribbles, but we saw him make this run in here. And Dalot just, I don't know what Dalot's thinking. It's a soft penalty again, don't get me wrong, but I don't know what he's thinking in that. It's the 96th minute. You don't tackle someone in your own box in the 96th minute. I do think he was a bit unlucky. He tripped and caught Madueke, but I do think at the speed of the game it was a penalty. And obviously, again, we've said it. Cole Palmer doesn't miss. He's the penalty goat. And then, I mean, Man United just switch off for the fourth goal, don't they? I mean, at this point, I'm happy that we've rescued a point. I thought, you know what, I'll take a point against Man United. I mean, it was poor, but still. I want to show you this photo here. Man United players, look at how many players of that Man United team are setting up for this corner and pointing at Cole Palmer. They're all pointing for someone to go and get onto him to stop him from having the shot that he then inevitably takes, and it goes in. And pandemonium erupts at Stamford Bridge. I erupt in my living room. I never quite experienced something like it. And even though it was pretty much a mid-table game, wasn't it? It was a battle for 7th place, and yet I was over the moon. But regardless, I thought it was a really poor game tactically. When we look at the game that I reviewed against Man City versus Arsenal, that was a tactical masterclass, almost two tactical teams going at each other. This was very much the opposite. This was very much two teams that just went all out. How are we going to beat this other team that can't defend? And that's why we saw so many goals. I thought there were soft penalties in the game, which did help Chelsea, but it was a great result nonetheless, and it was very entertaining. And I bet all the neutrals out there were very entertained. If you were a neutral, let me know how you were, how much you enjoyed that game in the comments below. But I do think Man United still have a chance, obviously, in the FA Cup. And they're probably going to beat Coventry and make it to another final, you'd assume anyway. But if you want to find out how Man United beat Liverpool in that dying moment of the quarterfinals, then make sure you go check out my video on that. And I'll definitely review the other FA Cup finals coming up. But for now, I mean, I am going to go and celebrate because that was brilliant. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys very soon with another video. Thank you.